March 6, 1944. Leiston Airfield, Suffolk, before dawn. Wind cuts across the steel matting, rattling the tarps as floodlights throw long blades of white over the dispersal. First Lieutenant Jack Mace Mallory of the 363 Fighter Squadron, B-6M, stenciled beneath the cockpit, touches a gloved hand to the cool flank of his P-51B. The Packard-built Merlin coughs, then steadies into a muscular purr that vibrates through the seat back. Two fresh 108-gallon paper drop tanks hang under the wings, lacquered and smelling faintly of glue and fuel. A crew chief, TSGT Frank DeLuca, taps the fuselage twice. "She'll take you there and back, Lieutenant," he says, half promise, half prayer. In the cockpit, oxygen crackles. The A-14 mask is cold against Mallory's cheek as he checks the SCR 522 radio. Leiston Red Lead, radio check. Replies come clipped and confident through the static. Outside, the rest of the 357th Fighter Group warms up. Prop discs, ghosting in the dark, exhausts spitting orange. Today's board is unforgiving. Deep escort. The word nobody says, but all of them think, is Berlin. Wheels lift at first light. The country falls away in neat winter squares, the North Sea ahead like hammered tin. Climbing hard, they step across altitude blocks, ladders of breathless cold. At 25,000 feet, the canopy rim glitters with frost, and contrails feather from the wingtips. Far to the west, black specks thread toward them. The bombers stream. Fortresses and liberators grind forward in tight boxes, silver and patient, their noses tilted at the horizon. Somewhere inside a B-17, a navigator rubs frost from his perspex window and stares at the little dot of a Mustang keeping station overhead. It's a new sight. Fighters that do not turn back. Over the Zuider Zee, the stream fattens. 3 air divisions unwinding into Germany, PFF Pathfinders leading, sky alive with the dull bark of engines. Mallory reads his fuel, feels the weight of those drop tanks tug at the wings. The briefing echoes in his ears. Penetration escort, target escort, withdrawal escort. Do not be drawn down and away. Keep the top cover. You are here to keep the Luftwaffe off the bombers. You can hear your instructor from stateside too. Finger 4, attack from above, don't get slow. On the German coast, Freya radar paints the incoming tide. Far inland, a controller in a dim room leans over a plotting table. Voice low but urgent as he pushes markers. Feindverband gross. Höhe 8 bis 9,000 fighter wings scramble. Yellow-nosed BF-109Gs and FW-190. As pull into the winter morning, razor silhouettes rising in spirals. Men tug at their fur-lined boots and slam canopies. Someone daubs the last of a white distemper winter camo along the leading edge. The order crackles. Climb, gather, wait above the bombers, and scythe the American formations before they reach the city. A month ago, during Operation Argument, Big Week, the 8th Air Force had driven heavy strikes at the aircraft industry from Brunswick and Gotha to Regensburg. The price had been blood. Fortresses limping home on 2 engines, waist gunners with 1,000-yard stares. But the calculus changed. In February, Mustangs appeared more often, deeper, pushing beyond Ruhr flak belts. And today, the board in the group operations hut had left no room for doubt. Rendezvous with the bombers, ride them, and be over the target when the Luftwaffe expects you to be gone. Cloud rips open into a blue so hard it could cut glass. Below, rivers score dark paths through snow. The bomber stream turns east by compass, and the escort settles into a cap, slightly above and ahead. sunlight flashing along the P-51's laminar flow wings. Laced in red, this is Debden blue. You have company 12 high, far. Another group, 4th Fighter Group out of Debden, slides past on the far side, contrails crossing like chalk strokes. Across VHF, other voices. Bodney, Steeple Morden, Raiden, the names of English villages that now mean fighter groups and men. Mallory squints through the reflector sight. Black flowers begin to open far ahead, a flak testing the range, feeling for altitude. Berlin lies still many minutes and miles away, but its first scouts, the shell bursts, announce it with contempt. Tanks are clean when it comes, the briefing had said. Do not carry dead weight into a fight. He rests his thumb along the drop tank jettison switch, a promise to the airplane that he'll let it be what it is when the time comes. Fast, tight, hungry. A glint sun on aluminum winks high to the east. Another, lower, crossing fast. Climbing Fokker wolves, wings broad, snouts blunt. The Luftwaffe has stacked the sky, cutting in from up sun. Laced in red to all red elements. Tally bandits, 1 o'clock high. Angels 3-0. Keep your height. No one goes hero down the ladder. The Merlin thrums. The mask turns each breath into a small, private windstorm. The bomber stream drives on, unwavering, a city's worth of steel in measured motion, and the Mustangs flex like sword points above it, waiting for the strike. Over the radio, you hear it. The sharp, urgent note that means the enemy has committed. Mallory's glove tightens. The sky's about to break open. They come in 2s and 4s, sun at their backs, throttles to the last thread. F109, G's scissoring in. FW190As, with big belly tanks rattling, hunting the bombers. Then the discipline of briefed altitudes collapses into need. Mustangs shed their paper tanks like sleet. The jettison levers click and 2 white cylinders tumble away, spinning, then flicking end over end toward the fields and hedgerows miles below. Laced in red lead in. 2 o'clock high, Mallory rolls right, nose down, and the Merlin answers with a rising, eager howl. The world sharpens. The reflector sight's amber ring swallows a 190 that fills the glass, crossing left to right with a predator's certainty. He squeezes the trigger. 6.50 hammers in a braided roar that vibrates in his sternum. Tracer reaches, then finds the fuselage just aft of the cockpit. Sparks, a puff, then a burst of flame. The 190 yaws, smoke slipping along its spine. Mallory pulls up hard, checks high and low, feels the Mustang's wing load up with clean, elastic pressure. Brake 2, high 6. His wingman snaps left, and a 109 flashes past, close enough for a glimpse of the pilot's goggled face and the uneven paint on the spinner. Below and behind, the bombers hold formation. B-17 tails writhe slightly as pilots muscle the yokes through flak bumps. Waist gunners track, barrels twitching at specs that never quite resolve. A Liberator's number. 3 engine belches smoke, then steadies. The sky is a machine with gears slipping, every movement measured, every mistake fatal. On the German side of the radio net, a clipped voice barks, "Horrido!" as a Sturm unit tries to form for a frontal pass, but the geometry is wrong now. They had timed it for unescorted heavies. Instead, P-51s are still here, still above the stream, still fresh. A 109 driver throws his nose down to dive through the box anyway, and finds a Mustang there, sliding in from high, 2 o'clock. He flinches the stick and shoves the throttle. The sudden choice is survival, not attack. Mallory drags the throttle, lines up again. He isn't here to chase kills down to the deck. He's here to be a wall no one gets through. A tight weave across the front of a bomber group pushes a 190 wide. Another 190 tries a climbing turn to convert for a stern approach. 2 Mustangs drop in, a bracket, forcing him to abandon the climb or present a belly. "Blue flight, you've got top cover, keep it," Mallory calls. "Do not bleed altitude." We are not gifting them the high perch. They catch the first glimpse of Berlin as a smear beyond the horizon, a gray bruise stitched with smoke. Flak tightens. The air to the east pits into a black archway. "Target support. Stay with them," comes the calm voice from group. Inside one of the fortresses, the bombardier rides the Norden and thinks only of drift and airspeed. He cannot see the Mustang 100 yards above his nose canted, patient, scanning for a new pounce. Another group, Bodney's Blue Nose 352nd, slides in to relieve a squadron that is fuel limited. The choreography is seamless, practiced over briefings and chalkboards. For months, Luftwaffe pilots had seen the escorts peel away before the target. Today, the Americans do not peel. On the ground, sirens curl through courtyards and factories. Inside a command post, a staff officer's pencil snaps as the latest report drops into his hand. "Jägerabwehr oben, nach immer." Fighters are still above, over the target. No return to base for those long-range machines. The calculus of the defense, mass before the city, vanish at the city, has broken. An FW-190 tries a head-on pass through a small box on the outer edge of the stream. The burst is fierce. A B-17 staggers, glass blown white along the nose. Its right wing lights for 3 long heartbeats, then the flame runs out and dies as the pilot side-slips and the crew fights for control. That 190 never finishes its weave. A P-51 bites a scissored arc into it from above. Bullets crawling up the wing root, and the Focke-Wulf folds into cloud. Red lead. Fuel check. Voices answer with numbers. The mission commander glances at the clock on the panel. Minutes to target, then minutes through the falling iron, then minutes to withdrawal. It's all arithmetic and nerve. The Merlin's pitch deepens as Mallory skims the formation's high quarter. Then he sees it. A 109 hanging in a climbing turn. Pilot greedy for a shot at a limping fortress, struggling to close the interval. Mallory shoves the stick forward, tucks into a near vertical slash. The Mustang's nose is steady in the sight. The trigger breaks, a short disciplined burst. Snap, spark, a panel lifts. The 109 rolls onto its back and falls, canopy kicked off, a small figure bailing into the cold. The city below turns itself inside out with air bursts and smoke patterns. Bombs fall, linked by thin wires, and the wind unthreads them. Bombs away. The words are a sacrament and a mercy. The formation yaw is heavier now as they begin to turn for home. And the Luftwaffe knows it. The withdrawal had been their hour of harvest. Today, though, the top cover banks in perfect synchrony, still above, still there. On a grass strip west of the city, a German ground crewman shades his eyes. The American bombers have not shed their guardians. Mustangs, bright and unafraid, hang over the retreating gray boxes like hawks riding a thermal. He lowers his hand and says quietly, as if afraid to be overheard by the war, "Sie sind immer noch da." They are still there. "Leisten red, with you on the turn," Mallory says, and the gun barrels cool in the thin sunlight. The city slides away beneath cloud that smells of cordite and smolder. The bombers gather themselves, wounded and angry, and head west with a retinue of fighters that do not fade. The homebound leg is a hard, bright ribbon drawn across the map. southwest, then west, flak diminishing, nerves buzzing with the aftertaste of adrenaline. The radio quiets to check-ins, fuel states, and quick, taut directions as fresh squadrons trade places in the sky, stepping up to cover and then away, like layers of armor. Somewhere below, a train hides in a stand of trees. An engine driver peers up through soot and dares to move, only when the sound is gone. Mallory watches a wounded fortress fall behind the stream, 2 Mustangs shepherding it in a gentle cradle. That is the new rule. No slow bomber gets left alone. A 190 tries to pounce the straggler from a sun patch. The escort is ready. 1 P-51 knifes across in a pure angle-off burst, close and fast enough to toss bits of cowling into the sky like confetti. The German fighter falls away, and the straggler soldiers on, a little safer with Mustang shadows plastered across its wings. In a Berlin office, the air still ripples from the last near hit. A liaison officer stands, dusts plaster from his tunic, and says something he thought he would never say. Langstreckенjäger. Über Berlin, long-range American fighters. Over Berlin. Elsewhere, in a mess at an airfield that smells of cold oil and cabbage, a Staffelkapitän circles a map with his finger and calculates fuel. Enough for a scramble, not enough for a chase. Losses are taking a kind of talent they cannot replace. Flight school hours have shrunk. Pilots arrive tight-jawed and pale, learning the last part of their craft in the teeth of men who have been at this for years. Back over the North Sea, contrails fray. The engine's rhythm drops from battle-tight to cruising shore. Leaston's homing beacon whispers them home. When the English coast rises from haze, the cockpit warms by degrees. The cockpit smells of cordite and burnt glycol finally fade. Wheels drop. The runway swims up, the main gear kiss and rumble, and the tail settles. The Merlin snarl gentles to a contented growl as Mallory rides the brakes to a halt by dispersal. Sergeant DeLuca is already loping in, ducking beneath the wing, eyes roving the skin for neat oval holes that will need patching tonight. "How many, Lieutenant?" he asks, but not like a scorekeeper, like a man taking inventory of a ship after a gale. Mallory lifts his mask. "Enough to keep them honest," he says. He thinks of the German pilot stepping into a parachute and a new war on the ground. He thinks of the bomber that will land on 3 engines and a prayer. Men crouching beneath bullet-chewed frames, hands on shoulders in the debriefing room because there are fewer of them than at dawn. In the debrief hut, steam from wet wool rises into the ceiling rafters. Coffee tastes like burned dirt in heaven. Intelligence officers lay grease pencils on acetate and ask for clock times, headings, paint schemes, black tailbands, yellow noses, a rough whitewash on upper wings. "Any rockets?" one asks, and someone nods. A 190 with underwing tubes that fired wide and low, a clumsy arc meant to scare a formation apart. The talk turns practical. Spacing, the moment to jettison, the discipline of not being drawn down after a single cripple. The new gospel has been written in flak smoke and VHF calls. Stay high, stay present, stay through the target and out the other side. At group, a colonel slides a tally sheet across a desk. Claims and damaged and no losses and missing. He has watched the curve of this war shift on paper for months. But today, it is a different thing. Not a line, but a hinge. In corridors and cockpits, men repeat a phrase that will be polished into legend. When the Mustangs reached Berlin, the Luftwaffe lost the daytime war. Even Reichsmarschall Göring, it is later said, looked up at American fighters over his capital and felt the old certainties crumble under his boots. And yet, the victory is not neat. The maintenance crews work into the night, rivet guns rapping like small drums as they plate over daylight's wounds. Armorers sit with disassembled Brownings laid out like instruments, wiping residue from feed pawls and bolts. A line chief chalks Berlin on a board and draws a circle around it. Not celebratory, but matter of fact. It is a destination now, not a myth. The 357th, Leiston's Yoxford Boys, has scuffed boots and red eyes, and more missions to fly this week. The sea wind carries the smell of oil and wet earth. Someone cracks a joke that lands like a life preserver. March is still raw. There will be other raids, other cities, Brunswick and Oschersleben, Augsburg and Regensburg again. The harrying of airfields that will leave burnt wings scattered across grass strips. The Luftwaffe will answer with Sturmgruppen and heavier guns, and they will kill men the 8th cannot spare. But the shape of the fight has changed. Deep escort is not a promise made in a briefing. It's a fact written across the sky. New P-51Ds are coming with bubble canopies that erase blind spots. New drop tanks arrive by the tens of thousands, light and throwaway, the most beautiful trash in the world. Mallory signs the form and steps back into the evening air. The horizon is a pale seam. He leans against the Mustang's warm cowl and closes his eyes. In the silence after engines, there is a ringing that might be the memory of guns or the thin echo of victory. Tomorrow, the ground crew will sling fresh tanks under the wings. Tomorrow, the group will mark lines on a map that cross rivers and cities men used to whisper about. And tomorrow, if the weather holds, the 8th will roll the machine again. Bombers and fighters in lockstep, a moving front in the sky. For now, there is a moment. A bird crosses the dusk, the only thing in the air not built for war. Mallory opens his eyes and runs a palm across the Mustang's skin, feeling the small dings and warm metal. "You did it," he says, to the machine, to the crew, to the faceless string of men he turned into smoke hours ago, to the men he protected and the ones he could not. It is not triumph, he feels. Not exactly. It's the knowledge that something irreversible happened over Berlin. The enemy looked up for the first time and saw the Americans were still there. Far away, in towns that will know their names only as entries in telegrams. Families clear dinner tables and listen to radios for news no radio can truly carry. The war is still enormous, still hungry. But in a drafty hut at Leiston, men log fuel and times and headings, and the pencil scratches sound like a verdict. The sky opened today and did not close.